Okay, so hello everyone, and welcome back to the BMW Blog Podcast. This is episode 20, and we have a good episode for you today because Horacio is on, and he's going to talk to us about some interesting stuff. So he just had the chance to test drive the new BMW X5M. Excuse me. We're going to talk about the new logo change for for BMW just in general, but it kind of started on the i4 Concept, and then we're going to talk about the i4 Concept as well. So hello, Horacio, and thank you for joining us.
Hey Nico, thanks for having me once again. Lots of exciting topics this week, so I guess we'll just dive right into it.
Yeah.
So you want me to kick off with the X5M and X6M? That's the latest one that I've been dealing with or working on.
Yeah.
So I don't even know. It was maybe a couple of weeks ago. I was in Phoenix, actually Scottsdale, Arizona, and that's where the international media launch of the X5M and X6M took place. Not sure why they chose that region, but there were some really fantastic roads to drive on. I was hoping that we're going to go to a racetrack, but that hasn't happened. I think for generation X5M, X6M, oh my God, a long time ago, maybe 10 years ago, longer than that, it was in Atlanta, the road Atlanta, so they had us on the track. It was actually quite fantastic to drive those cars. So I was kind of hoping that that's the case, but it hasn't. So with that being said, I reviewed both cars. I mean, I started with the X5M in the early morning. We did a few runs from 0 to 62 miles per hour. And I was also, I mean, actually the nice part about this event was that BMW realized that, there's so much power in these cars and everybody wants to push the cars quite hard. And they said, let's talk to the local police and see if we can come up to an agreement where basically, if you want to do any stunts, don't do it on the, public road with people on. Let us close the road and you can do that. So it was kind of nice, because you could actually just go up to the sheriff and say, hey, can you close the road for 2 minutes? We want to do this run, or, can you just stop the traffic from that side so we can record this? So it was kind of, it was kind of nice for them to do that. They didn't really, bother the local traffic. There wasn't much traffic anyway, but if there were any, bicyclists or, bikes, going around, they told them to just stop a little bit so everyone is safe. So that was quite interesting and quite cool for them to do that. So let me jump in with that. So 0 to 62, I did a couple of runs. There were actually 3 of us in the car, and I only realized that a little bit after I did the test. Basically, I think in between the 2 of us, we had probably close to 600 pounds, maybe a little bit less. But we had also... Yeah, less than ideal. There was a full tank of gas because I started in the early morning. So the car was definitely heavier than they would test in when they do the official numbers. And we also had quite a few of equipment gear, and including the video guy that was with us. So I think, it's fair to say that, 650 pounds was probably in that car extra plus the gas. We did, I believe, 3.82 seconds. We did a couple of runs, one uphill, one downhill. There was no really straight road, like flat road, where we can do that. And I think, we came up short compared to, I think, Carwow, some other YouTube
I saw
channels.
Carwow's. Theirs was, I think, 3.6. He got going downhill, I think.
3.6 or 3.3. I don't remember.
So
1 of those. Wow. Yeah, I mean, it was something extremely quick. It was downhill, so I think uphill they went up by a tenth of a second.
Did you notice a difference, time wise?
Just a tenth of a second. Just a tenth of a second, really. I think it was 3.82 and then 3.9 or something like that, 3.96. So really not much of a difference. I'm sure if I would have continued to test it and maybe shift a little bit, better, probably I could have got the same time, especially with no people on. But nonetheless, car, it's extremely, extremely fast. So much torque from low RPM. I mean, that was the nice part. I mean, it's a heavy car, but once that turbo kicks in, you really don't feel that. So I think that was, the highlight of the entire drive. Just having that torque availability for you all the time. So we started with that, then we moved on to some regular driving. Basically, wanted to experiment, how you would drive the car on, let's say, a highway, and then jumping onto some of those, curvy back roads in the desert, which they were quite fantastic, actually. So I did manage to push the car quite hard. I rode a review on BMW blog, so anyone can actually go there. There is also a YouTube channel with a review. But basically, to summarize it, it's an improvement over the previous generation, as you'd expect. The engine has been revised. They've done a great job revising that engine, which was already pretty good. Transmission-wise, same thing. Fantastic, very, very smooth shifting, even in Sport Plus configuration, and very, very precise. So I kind of like that. I use the shift paddles a little bit just so I can play around with that. But you could just let the car do its thing, and it will be quite fast. Steering, the steering, it's always a topic that comes up. I don't even know if a lot of customers to buy X5M or X6M really care about the steering input, but same as you'd expect in a car of this size, similar to the M5. So it's well connected to the road. You get a lot of feedback. It's not really soft if you go into the Sport Plus mode. It's actually quite sharp and quite heavy. And of course, you can set it up into comfort and getting that a little bit more of a comfortable ride. And so basically, it's same thing as all the other new BMWs. They're trying to cater to a wider demographic. So they said, hey, let's give a wider range of options so we can please everyone. Again, I mean, if you're looking at the electromechanical steerings, like I have in my 1M, those times are gone. I mean, those times are gone. We're never going to see something like that. I don't even know if customers really want that. I mean, aside from a few enthusiasts, diehard fans of the brand, I don't think people would actually want to do that. So that was cool. I mentioned the engine and the horsepower. I mean, it's over 600 horsepower, so that's just a crazy amount of power. And it tends to help you hide the weight. So, I mean, the car, it's heavy. It's over 2 tons, I think 4,600 pounds, 4,500 pounds, somehow maybe 43, somewhere around there. So it's extremely heavy, especially with us in the car, it was even heavier. But it's able to hide its, heft. If you go into corners, try to, be super sporty, especially if you, turn up some of the nanny controls, you would feel that body roll quite a bit. You would feel, sliding, of course, because it's rear wheel biased. And if you're riding the seat back, you're likely going to get sick, especially in those corners and at that speed. But it's exactly what I expected. Nothing out of ordinary. I mean, it's still a great car. It's very hard to find any faults for it, and I truly enjoyed it. So that was kind of the half part of the day. I think we ended up going to a ranch. So we did a little bit of off road. We actually took the X5M through a very small river. So I think we're maybe
does with a
maybe
600 horsepower SUV.
Maybe a couple of feet deep, so not more than that. But we did a little bit of that so we can get to that ranch, and we just hung out there a little bit, took some nice photos, and then we decided to kind of jump back. Yeah, I mean, that was kind of cool. I mean, it was kind of different, than what we've done before. And then on the way back, it was a longer route actually. So I think the first one was like 3 hours drive. Coming back was over 4 hours. So extremely long day. But we took the X6M. I kind of wanted to see if it drives the same. There is a huge debate in the BMW community, especially on our website. I mean, which one looks better? The X6M, an ugly car. I mean, I know you personally not a fan of the X6 body style, but yes, I mean, it's very subjective. Again, can't really argue with that styling. I did like the X6M. It just looks very, very muscular, honestly, and especially with the M bits on it. The redesigned front fascia. The rear end, it's aggressive. The wide hips. So if you look at the X6M, it definitely looks better than the regular X6 just because of that, and especially the super big wheels help quite a bit as well.
I love them on the X6M. The wheels look great.
Yeah, they're really, really nice, actually. They've done a great job with the wheel design as well. So I like that. They also had the and performance brakes on it. So that definitely helped, especially when we're speeding up a little bit. Right. But design-wise, I mean, it's totally up to you, right? I mean, people ask me, which one should I pick? It's pick your poison, basically. The X5M, it's more of a practical car. Like the X5 is more of a family car. It's a
much more traditional SUV.
Soccer hauler or soccer kids, or whatever you want to call it. So that the X6M, if you want to deny that, you're married with kids and you still want to feel like you're single, then maybe that's the car you'd pick. You want to feel young, you want to feel cool. I would say probably you'll take the X6M.
It's like
It's
a
less
halfway
practical.
midlife crisis car.
Exactly. I mean, it's less practical in the back, so I'm sure your kids will probably not gonna love that. But
No, I
just looks
actually
cool.
I had a harder time putting a car seat in the back of an X6 than I did an M340i. It's pretty difficult, actually.
Yeah, I mean, there's looking at the roof line, right? So it's quite low, actually. I mean, they've done a decent job with the seats in the back. The bench, it's a little scooped in, so you're sitting at an angle a little bit, so that
Right.
managed to like push you down a little bit. But I mean, I'm quite tall, a 6'3". I got about maybe like an inch and a half headroom. Likely if there's a pothole or something, I'll probably hit my head if I'm not careful.
Especially
But
in the X6M with the stiff suspension.
yeah, exactly. But I'm also on the taller side of things, so I don't think
Right.
I'm average height. So
No.
I'm the extreme of things. But yeah, I mean, it's less practical, clearly. I mean, the opening there, it's a little bit tighter. The roof line, the trunk is actually quite spacious. I don't recall exactly how it compares to the X5M as far as space in the trunk, but it
I would
does
say
have
it's
a lot of
probably
space.
similar.
Yeah, it does have a lot of space.
I
It's
think
very deep,
it's knock it's like practicality knock of the trunk is just because of the roof line, like you can't
yeah,
get like tall
like
things in
height.
there. Yeah,
Yeah,
it
you
kind of
probably
impedes
can't
on the
use the
highway.
height.
Yeah.
Exactly. I think it's probably deeper, but has less height for
And
going
the
for it.
load lip is high. Like you have to pick, like if you have to put something heavy in, it's going to be a little tricky because you got to pick it up quite high to get over that like rear
Yeah, that's true. That's
load
true.
lip.
But then again, like those are little
But
things. I mean, I guess if you buy that
it
car, you
is,
kind of know what to expect. So,
yeah. That's
I
what you
mean,
pay for style.
exactly. And you and I talked about, the design of those cars, and people point out the Q8, and I still don't think the Q8 it's a car that really competes with the X6 or X6M. I mean, it's basically just a different design style, more of a sportback, riding higher, or
Yeah, the
the
Q8's
X6.
probably the most different of all the big SUV coupes. I think the
Yeah,
closest example is the Mercedes GLE coupe,
yeah,
the AMG 63,
hmm
that one. That's probably the closest. I mean,
yeah.
it's almost like they carbon copied the damn things off each other.
I
Um,
agree.
but yeah,
Yes,
The Q8 isn't nearly as like rakish in the back. Like its roofline isn't anywhere near as aggressive as the
yeah.
X6M.
Totally different body style. I mean, similar proportions, but just different. Yeah, so ride's the same as the X5M. There is absolutely no difference, really. I mean,
Really?
honestly, you'll probably take a pro driver to really, tell us if he really drives better or if he can get better performance out of it. But it drives exactly the same. It has the same exact setup when it comes to the suspension and the steering and the engine. Likely the suspension tuning might be a little bit different to accommodate for a different body style, but honestly, I didn't ask them. It's just my assumption.
Right.
So yeah,
Actually,
so that's kind of
one
sure.
question I have actually, do either of them, or I guess it would be both, do they have the like adaptive brakes like the M8 does? The M8 has like the two-way brakes. You can do comfort or
Yeah,
sport.
it's called brake by wire. I think that's the
Right.
terminology they use.
Yeah,
So
yeah, because
it does have that.
did you like? Because I tested the M8 for like 2 seconds on track at Spartanburg, but like I didn't get a chance to change the mode. Did you get a chance to do that? And if you did, like, did you notice any difference?
Actually, I don't think I did change the mode. That's actually a good point. I don't think I did. It might have been set up differently in both cars, but I can't really speak to that. That's a good point, actually. That's something to keep in mind when we get a car to test drive again.
That might be the best compliment
Yeah.
you could give BMW right now, though, because that's a brake by wire has had some like iffy results in different cars. So the fact that
hmm
you kind of like almost forgot that even had it is a
Yeah, I mean,
good thing. You know, like you
I
didn't notice
just,
that it was
I mean,
artificial.
braking was great. I don't know. I mean, honestly, I pushed the car quite hard. I mean, we got up to 180 kilometers per hour at some point. So that's about,
Damn,
I don't know, it's over 100 miles. I don't know the conversion right now, but
yeah, I
extremely
don't know that off the
fast.
top of my head.
So I mean, I had to brake hard quite a few times, and I didn't feel any issues with that. I actually liked them. They felt really grippy, sticky. Same thing
Good.
with the tire. So honestly, it was one of those cars where you just get behind the wheel and drive fast. It actually kind of makes you feel like you're a super fast driver.
Yeah,
Especially the X Drive. It's really nice. The MX Drive system. So it keeps you like on the road, but it doesn't take away the fun. So it does slide a little bit, lets you slide a little bit in the back, then kind of puts you back the road on the proper line. So it's just a lot of fun. So that's kind of the nice part about those cars. You just jump behind the wheel and you can drive. If you
Right.
get an M3 and M4 or an M2, you got to have a little bit more skills, to really, go fast. But for those cars, it's just sheer power, basically raw power, and just make sure you know what you're doing with the steering, and you should be good to go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Now,
think that's
now
yeah,
M fans are getting a little taste of like the Audi life from all the, it's all
yeah,
all-wheel drive and all tons of grip. Whereas like M2 still has that, you're on a knife edge a little bit. You have to be careful. You can't push it too hard or you'll go sideways. M2 still has that, but
yeah. I
the
mean,
next M3 is going to be all-wheel drive too.
the M2, there have been plenty of accidents without crashes. People not being able to control the car. So
Yeah, I've had
yeah,
my fair
definitely
share of
takes.
butthole
Yeah,
clenching moments.
yeah, it definitely takes a lot
M2s,
more skill, and you have to pay attention a little bit more than you would with
for sure.
X5M, X6M, X3M. So that was kind of the thing. I mean, the other thing that I noticed, I did a few tests on YouTube with the exhaust. So the exhaust sounds actually quite nice. I've tested the exhaust, with a morning start, a cold start, and it was really nice. Also with the valves open, and you get those blurbs, and that's kind of
Right.
rewarding. Those sound inside the cabin. Of course, that's kind of how it works these days, and
Yeah.
I believe you can adjust it now. I didn't get a
Oh,
straight
right.
answer.
Yeah.
I didn't get a straight answer if you can completely turn it off or not, or you can just reduce the intensity of the fake sound inside the cabin. But there is an adjustment now in the infotainment system where you can actually play around with that. So I will have to go back once again when we get
Right.
the car and kind of take a look at that, because that will be quite interesting. And I did ask over a discussion with one of the engineers responsible for the drivetrain and the engine, and I said, well, what's going on with the sound, and why can't you make them sound a little bit better? And basically he said that most of the things that they have to deal with are regulations, and especially in Europe there is a lot of sound pollution laws either in place or coming up. So they have to deal with that in order to comply. So they could actually make the cars sound louder, but they can't because of those regulations. And that's why they kind of use to give a better sound inside a car versus on the outside.
Right.
So to
And
them, it was quite challenging because they said they have to keep this balance where they still want to please the customer, but then again, they have to comply. So it's not an easy task for them to find that right balance.
now, will American cars, because you said that was only European regulations, right? Will American cars be louder?
Well, this one was an American spec, so it will definitely sound also, I think, better than the European because it doesn't have the OPF. I think the OPF applies to all of the European cars right now.
Yeah.
So I would assume that's even more tamed when it comes to sound just because of the, what is it called? The outer uh, particle
Yeah,
filter.
the
I think
particulate
that's
filter. Yeah.
that's the German, I think.
Yeah, because we've noticed
So
that the M340i and the Z4 M40i both sound better in the States versus Europe
exactly.
because of that filter. It kind of muffles the exhaust a little bit.
Exactly. So I expect the same thing with those.
Right.
So that's kind of like on the sound, but yeah, like overall, I mean, just to kind of conclude this, great car. If you're in the market for a car of that type, you kind of know what to expect. There are few options in that segment, so you can just go and try them on and see which one you like best. I think performance-wise, they're all pretty much up there. Just comes down to personal preference. But when it comes to the new ones, definitely an improvement. Definitely great cars. And if you have the money to buy it over an X5 M50i or X6 M50i, then I highly recommend it. It's definitely more emotional and more engaging, and it's an M car in the end. So you'll turn some heads, whatever you go with
Yeah.
that car. Actually, that's
It's
interesting.
fast.
Actually, the last point on that, I was writing with Benny from our sister magazine Beamer today, and basically Benny was telling me how ridiculous those SUVs are in Europe. Like people, they just look down on you if you drive like a large SUV like an X5M, X6M. They they're very condescending, or they just look down on you because they assume that you're rich and you're trying to show off. So actually, I've learned that some executives there, they have the money to kind of buy a X5M or X6M or an M5, but they're not because they don't want to be perceived like they're making too much money and they're wasting out on cars. So they go with like a regular 5 Series or like a regular X5.
Not
So
here in America.
exactly.
America, the
So
bigger the car you have, the better.
Yeah, so I mean it's nice to be able to buy something that you can afford and enjoy it, especially if you have the money. So that was
Right.
my counterpoint to him. He was also talking about the size, how big the car really is. And I said, well, let's drive around a little bit. I mean, we're in Arizona, and trust me, there were so many trucks out there, and we
I
would
can
pass
imagine.
by them, and we were the smallest out of all of them.
Right.
And I even pointed out to Benny, I said, look around, and nobody even noticed that they were in actually an X5M or something like that. I mean, there's so many
Right.
big cars around there, we just blend in basically. So it was kind of cool, to see the different perception, different mentalities, different cultures, when it comes to, Europe versus the US, the type of cars they like, the type of cars that we like. So it made for an interesting conversation. I mean, they got some good points and we have some good points as well. My point was, if you have the money, buy the best car that you can. Don't really care what other people say. If you enjoy that,
Right.
just go for it. Splurge, right? I mean, that's why you're working
Yeah.
hard. So,
That's kind
yeah.
of how
So,
like I always felt as a car enthusiast in general. Like I don't buy a car because I care about what people think of me while I drive it. I buy a car because I want to drive that specific car. Like that's all I care about. And I think that's how
yeah.
car enthusiasts in general, just how they feel. Like most people, like
Mhm.
most enthusiasts, like to drive, so they buy the car they want to drive. I think outside
Exactly.
perception is secondary.
I'm also at fault too, judging some other brands like a Lamborghini or a Ferrari. If I see like a crazy color like a green or one of those, I'm like, come on, really? I mean, do you really need to get that color? But honestly, I'll probably get the same one. I mean, it's just
Yeah,
if you want to stand out, if got a more eccentric taste, why not go for it,
right.
right? So
And there are sleeper cars and there are not. Like an X5M is, it looks aggressive if you know what you're looking for, but if you don't know, that it's, if you don't know cars that well, it just looks like a, sporty looking X5.
exactly.
So you can get that in like a black or a gray or something, and it just kind of looks like a cool
Mhm.
SUV, and you don't have to look ridiculous, but it also has the power to, hang with supercars. So it's
Yeah, exactly. And I
it's a
mean,
great
we're
way
in
to buy a
Arizona,
motorcycle.
so if we were in California, I would have assume people would have noticed the cars right away, especially the
Yeah.
the car enthusiasts, and they would have probably taken photos of the car and stop us to ask questions. But
Right.
In Arizona, I don't think there is a huge market for M cars, so maybe
No,
that's why we
probably not.
managed to blend in a little bit more. But
Yeah.
nonetheless, it was quite fun. So I had a great time. I'm actually looking forward to read your review when you get the car for like a week, because that's a different type of
Oh,
test.
I would
You
love that.
really, yeah. I mean, I'm sure it's coming up, so we should be able to get one in the spring. And the weather is nice, and I'm kind of
Yeah.
curious to see what do you think about the car. But it's fair to say that most of the people will use the X5M and X6M inside a city and not really go on some of those curvy back roads in the middle of nowhere
Surely. Yeah.
to test their performance. So yeah,
Surely.
so that was cool.
No, it looked like an awesome trip, and
Yeah,
it's kind of
short,
hard to beat driving
sh-
600 short. Yeah.
yeah, short, a lot of miles to drive, but not complaining. Could be worse jobs out there.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So yeah,
Always have to take a step back and be like, this is not a bad day at work, even
yeah,
though it's
exactly.
it's
Yeah,
hectic and in and out, but
ex-
it's there are worse days at work.
exactly.
All right, so I know you don't have a lot of time, so I want to jump into our next topic, which is the new logo that BMW debuted on the i4 Concept.
All right, so tell
So
me what you think, because I have my own opinions. I mean, I've studied, user interface and user experience design quite a lot actually in my college days. So I'm kind of curious to hear your thoughts, and I'll tell you mine.
I really like it actually. Maybe I'm in the minority, and I'm seeing a
Why is
lot
that
more.
though?
I just it's simpler, it's cleaner, and I think it looks much more modern. And I think like one of the things that I was saying, I think a couple podcasts back, I was saying how BMW kind of needs to shake it up and be bold, like for the sake of being
Hmm.
bold, like kind of be more interesting. And I think this is a good way to do it. Like I don't know, it kind of reshapes the brand a little bit. It's
Hmm.
clean. I like the lack of the black ring. I kind of like that being transparent. I
Hmm.
know it's not going to be on everything, but I like it. I
Hmm.
think it's cool, and I like the fact that you could see
Yeah.
the body color like through the logo. I don't know. It's just
Hmm.
something I liked it. I think it's
Yes, I mean,
interesting.
I last week when they launched the logo, I did a podcast actually by myself. It's going to come up soon also with Jens Thiemer. He's the senior vice president of BMW marketing or brand management. So basically the head of all marketing for BMW Group. And we had a great conversation on that. And I mean, they're definitely trying to bring something new to the brand. They're trying to connect with a new demographic, new customers. So that was the change. But I think the message that I got, during that conversation, it was actually the wrong one, because I had to go back and actually confirm that I misunderstood. Basically, I thought that the logo, it's going to be used on cars and not just on marketing material. So I kind of went with the story, and everybody went, up in the arms complaining about that. But apparently, they're only using that on the concept car. This one for now, maybe some other concept cars coming up. There are no plans currently to use it on production cars, and there are no plans to actually use it at dealerships. So basically, you're still going to get the classic BMW logo at dealerships. And I think the idea was that with a flat logo like they did, so it's kind of like a flat design, something that Microsoft started a few years back with mobile apps, and then Apple, like a flat design, so it doesn't have that 3D look. So if you look from far away, it's easy to miss it, or it's not as easy to see it as you would on a 3D logo. So the flat approach could be tricky from far away, could be tricky on certain products. So if you apply this onto a car, it kind of blends in a little bit more with the car, so it might not stand out immediately. And especially with the outer ring being transparent, it's going to cause an issue with some of the colors out there. So like against a
True.
white background, you will look quite strange, because there is a lot of
Right.
white
You
there.
would
It's
lose the two
transparent.
white checkers in the logo. You would lose
Exactly.
that at all. Or if
So
it was
it
like a
blends.
similar blue, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to blend in, basically, if you want to, build a product that blends in, then that's the perfect way to do it. But if you want that logo to stand out from far away, then might not be. So it will definitely look great on some darker colors, I think. I mean, there were some, people that try that to kind of, represent that on some current BMWs, and it looked actually really nice on some different colors. So I think they're, from my opinion, based on my knowledge, I think they're experimenting. I think they're trying to see also what the reaction is. They're probably, taking this slow approach. Maybe it will show up on some cars, maybe some special electric cars, or hybrid sports car, and they're doing that. I don't know for sure. I mean, I'm sure we'll learn more. Apparently, there are a few other surprises in store for us when it comes to branding and all of that. They've also changed the branding on the M, right? So same thing, a flat
Yeah.
approach. The three bars, the stripes don't really stand out as much on that
Right.
particular logo. So they've changed that. I think they changed the BMW I as well a little bit. So that
Yeah, I
one,
think they
it's
did.
also
Or
losing
remade, right?
it's also losing the outer edge a little bit, 3D edges, so it looks flat as well.
Yeah. See, I actually like
So
it, and I know, like, just to take this with a grain of salt, because I have no experience in design.
yeah.
And if you saw the way I dress, I mean, you have, but if anyone else saw the way I dress, I don't know anything about style. But counterpoint to like the fact that they don't, like, the badge wouldn't make the car stand out as much, or you would lose the badge a little bit if it were flat. Like, isn't the design of the car, like, doesn't BMW have enough design cues, like historic, iconic design cues, to make it like instantly recognizable as a BMW? Like, you have kidney grills and Hofmeister kink and stuff like that. Like, BMW is really concerned about the logo being lost, like, being difficult to see, even though you have the two, I mean, especially
I,
two massive kidney grills
I
now.
don't think they're concerned at all. I think it's just the community that's concerned. I haven't heard anything from BMW directly that they're concerned. They were very enthusiastic about this. They were excited to work on this, trying to give the brand a new, fresh look. Changes are always tough, so of course you're gonna have people complaining about that. But I think from their point of view, this is great. I think they're willing to experiment, and they're willing to change the brand, to shape up the brand for the future. And maybe this is just one way to do it. And maybe when we look back, in a few years, you'd actually turn out that that logo, it's actually pretty nice. I mean, if you look at the evolution, I think there was an infographic which showed like 6 different type of logos
Yes.
over
Yeah.
100 years. I mean, you can see the progression there, right? So I mean, if you go back in time, I'm sure that every change was like, oh, really? Now we have to change this. I want to kind of look nice.
Yeah.
So I think it's kind of the same thing. There was a big jump, I would say, from one logo to the next one. And I mean, color wise, font wise, and
Yeah.
even I think 3 logos ago, to put it that way, or 2 logos ago, there was another kind of flattish design, just with a black outer edge, and that one actually looked quite nice. So I think that's kind of what they're playing with right now.
Yeah, I like it. I like the idea that they're messing with it. I think it's good. I mean, I like the flat approach. I do. I think the more three dimensional one we have now looked great in the '90s, but I think it just looks dated at this point.
Yeah.
It kind of looks like old computer graphics, like old software. Kind of has a used to have that like everything had that like gradient effect to it, back in like the '90s and early 2000s, like every logo. So I like
Yeah.
the flat approach. I think it's more modern. I think it's a little bit more minimalist.
Hmm.
And I don't know. I hope they kind of roll with something like that because I think it looks pretty cool.
We'll see what happens. I mean, if you speak to a UI UX expert, a user experience, user interface
Mm,
expert, I'm pretty sure the one thing that they will tell you is that the flat shapes lack the details that really create depth and dimension. So, I mean, that's kind of the one thing that they will tell you right away. And I think you're also losing like shadows and highlights and especially the texture. So you're not able to reproduce that on a flat logo. And I think
of course, yeah.
that's one of the downsides of that approach. But yeah, and also with a 2D logo, it's not, like I said earlier, it's not easily recognizable, as a 3D approach. But I guess we'll have to see. I mean, I'm kind of actually curious to see if they're going to use that on another concept that they're going to show, maybe the iNext, iX,
Yeah.
whatever that's going to be. I'm actually curious to see what's going to be used on the production i4, which that kind of leads us into the next topic. So I guess that was the last one that we wanted to talk about.
Yeah.
They use the logo right now on the i4. I've had the photos for quite some time. Was an embargo on it, and I did not even pay attention to it. I mean, I saw the photos quite a few times, on different screens, and honestly, that logo did not stand out because I would have probably asked them immediately, what's up with that. So it actually looked quite nice on that car, especially with that copper bronzish, whatever color that
Right.
is. The
I
logo just
liked
looked
it.
nice.
I
Yeah,
liked
it,
that
it
you
looked
could
really
see the
nice. It looked,
color like through the transparency of the logo. I liked that. I thought that
I
was
mean, that was a
cool.
nice color too. So, very shiny, very bright, very, stands out. It's in your
Right.
face. So that was kind of cool. So that was the where we saw it first. But yeah, so the i4, right? I mean, that was the other, I would say, another crazy topic in a,
Yeah.
BMW world for the last few weeks.
Yeah. If you ask
Um,
any BMW enthusiast right now, this is like the worst time to be a BMW
yeah,
fan.
I mean,
Big
you and I
grills and i4 and just so much logo change.
Yeah, you and I haven't talked actually, but our traffic because of that story, the i4, and then the logo, I think we went up about 5 times the traffic that we normally have.
Oh,
So I was actually looking at some stats, and I was talking to BMW about that. I'm like, this is absolutely insane how much traffic and how much attention the car actually brought to the brand. And I was looking over 3 days, we had over 500,000 readers on the
oh my
website
God.
only. So that was an absolute record,
Yeah, we got to
half a
tell
million
BMW to keep being
readers.
controversial.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Keep it up.
controversial. I think it's a very, I mean, clearly the design, it's, controversial and it will spark a lot of discussions. But I think also there are a lot of people that are interested in electromobility. There are a lot of people that read our website now that I see more comments on electric type of articles than on an M article, for example, sometimes. Because people are just committed to electromobility. They want to see new products. So they get excited when they see something like that. But without a doubt, the main story of the i4 concept was the kidney grill, and
Right.
we knew that it's coming. We've seen the vision dynamics concept. I actually saw it personally 2 years ago in Frankfurt. Yes, I was in Frankfurt. They had a different type of grill. Was a one piece, not the same as this one. This one looks more like a mouth. The other one was more flat, more one piece. So I knew there was coming. Just didn't know what type of design until we saw the 4 Series coupe leaks. So there was a 4 Series coupe leak a few weeks ago,
Yeah.
and that one kind of sealed the deal. I mean, I knew it's coming. I just didn't know exactly what it would look like. And clearly the car, the i4, it's based on the 4 Series platform, on the new one, on the 4 Series Grand Coupe to be more specific. So it definitely shares most of the design features and also the front grille. The conventional power car will probably have a different type of slats in the kidneys to
Right.
accommodate for cooling and all of that. So it will look a little bit different,
Like
but
a
I expect the
functional
shape.
grill.
Yeah, I expect the shape to just, I mean, it's kind of the same as we saw in the photos. So very
Yeah.
controversial. I personally like the car because I've been dying to get a new electric car for quite some time. I still have to wait. we'll talk about that in a second, but, driving i3s for the last 6 years, I always wanted a new BMW that has an electric drivetrain, and been waiting for a car like this for quite some time. I've been telling also the BMW engineers and the BMW I executives for years that every time that I was sitting, I would actually bother them. I say, hey, so how about a Tesla? How about, what they're doing some decent things. They're putting out some cars that look actually quite nice. And I told them, I said, if years back you would have come out with a 3 Series electric, a 4 Series electric, an i4, even the i3, if it had a different shape or a different design, you would have sold significantly more cars.
Right.
The conversation Tesla versus BMW would have been completely different if they had a good looking car.
I completely agree.
They've done a great job with the manufacturing process. The i3, it's a piece of engineering that you rarely see in the world, and especially when you have to mass produce it. So it's not a supercar; it's something that you have to
It's
mass produce it.
fascinating. Yeah.
Yeah, it's unbelievable what they did, and I truly enjoy the car. But it's not a very good looking car, to just put it mildly, right? They've tried to come up with this concept of a city car, but I think if they would have bet on a sedanish, coupe-ish kind of design, 6, 7, 8 years ago, whenever the project started, more than that, I think they would have sold a lot of cars. A lot of cars would have been sold just based on the design, and with a decent driving range. I think it would have been a slam dunk by now. But unfortunately,
Right.
they took a gamble. It doesn't always pay off. I think they're trying to fix that. I'm not finding any excuse for them, but I think it's coming out next year, the regular i4. Then its production starts, I think, second half of 2021, and then it will come into some markets in early 2022, and I think that's when we're going to get it in the US as well. I'm hoping that's going to be early 2022, and with a decent price. I don't know exactly what to expect, but it's exciting to see that. And then, conversation will continue over the next 2 years, because people, say, hey, it's game over. Tesla, it's way ahead, and those guys are way ahead. But, if you look at the electric mobility market or the electric market, it's only like 2% of the overall market of the car market. So still very small. There's still 98% of the market to be conquered. It's a long play. It's a long game. You got to play the long game here.
Right.
And I think eventually, in 5 years, everyone will compete in every single segment with electric products. And then we will see, who actually builds better cars. Is it Tesla?
Yeah.
Is it, Audi? Is it Mercedes? We don't know yet.
We could be, I think we could take an educated guess that it won't be Tesla. And it's not that Tesla's
well,
bad,
no.
but when you factor in
say.
like the engineering and manufacturing might of the BMW group, the Volkswagen group, GM, and these brands that have so much bigger R&D budgets and manufacturing techniques and more plants and bigger supply chains. Like once these brands start to really roll into electric cars, I really think Tesla's stranglehold on the market's going to drop. Like they just don't. I don't think they have like the means to keep up. When was the last?
It's hard to tell.
That was the Model 3, and that was years ago.
I wouldn't bet against them though, and I'll tell you why. Because first of all, they're really pushing the boundaries on many things. Look at the Tesla Cybertruck, right? When it came out, people are like, what is this? And now people actually like it. People actually want to buy it. So they're pushing the boundaries. They have a really good, leader there. I think is willing to break the norms, trying to come up with something different. They also have an incredible following. They're just as committed, to the brand as the BMW, fans are. I would associate these three brands. Yeah, Tesla fans, BMW fans, and Apple fans are extremely committed to their products. They're advocates, they're doing the marketing for you many times. So I think everyone that I talk to, the Tesla owner, they love their car. They're willing to look past any flaws, any design like design issues or manufacturing issues and all of that. So we don't know. Honestly, I think the automotive industry is looking at Tesla right now, as a challenge for everyone. I think Tesla is pushing everyone to build better cars and come up with new things. I think
I agree with for sure. Yeah,
it's great competition. We don't know what the customer will look like in the next few years, because the way that we used to buy cars based on, the type of leather that's inside, the type of wood and all of that, it's kind of gone, because nobody really, the new demographic, new customer, they don't really want to go buy leather. They want to buy something that's synthetic, right? So they want to be eco-friendly or, what is it called? PETA friendly,
Right.
PETA.
Yeah, yeah,
So they
yeah.
want to do that. They don't want to chop trees down so they can get the best wood in there. So that's why
Right.
it might come down to not necessarily who's got the best craftsmanship. Maybe it's going to come down who's got the best design on the outside, who's got the best tech. The better tablets inside the car, the screens, and of
Right.
course, the better driving range. But just to go back to the i4, I think the design it's nice. I mean, especially from the sideline, I actually like it quite a lot. I mean,
Oh
it
yeah.
actually makes me wonder what the 4 Series Grand Coupe will look like. It's so beautiful from the side. The lines are simpler. There is less shapes, and it's just so fluid. Super super nice. I mean, it's
Yeah,
actually one of my
proportioned
favorite
really
designs.
well.
Proportions is perfect. I mean, it's
Yeah.
not too big. It's not small. It's got a little bit of an A series in there, just a little bit, so that's kind of nice because the A series Grand Coupe, it's
Hmm.
definitely a good looking car. I
Right.
like the back also. They've done a great job integrating the diffuser. So it's a functional diffuser actually, because for aerodynamics, they've done a great job integrating that without the tailpipes. If you look at some of the cars that don't have, pipes, they just kind of look strange, right? That rear bumper always looks kind of odd.
Yeah, every Audi
Looks,
right now.
yeah, I mean, yeah, some. I mean, they just look like odd, right? I mean, just one piece of, bumper there, and it's just so strange looking. But this one, they've done
Right.
a great job with those fins. It kind of, brings back the sportiness,
Right.
of the BMW cars
And I
in
like how they
play.
flank the side. Like it's not one continuous diffuser. It's like two separate diffusers
Oh,
that flank
exactly.
the rear end. Looks pretty cool.
Yeah, so they've done a great job with that. They have this little spoiler, I believe, on the trunk too, so that looks cool. And it actually looks quite wide from the back. I don't know if they enhance the hips a little bit there, but it's quite sporty. And then
Yeah,
of
I think
course you go, yeah,
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 the
go ahead.
only controversial design of it is its grill. I think the rest of it
Oh
looks
yeah,
great. Like I think the
for
grill,
sure.
I don't hate it. I don't love it. I don't hate it, but I think it's gonna divide a lot of fans, but I think
Yeah.
the rest of it is pretty bang on.
Well, I did a poll on it on Instagram, and actually there were more people that liked the design than that didn't. So clearly people like it. I did the same thing with the 4 Series leak photos, and
Yeah.
same thing. People actually there were more people liking the design than the other. So
Well, that's encouraging.
honestly, yeah, I mean it's a strange looking grill, but I think it's kind of what we expected. I think functionality wise, they had to go a little bit bigger with the grill because they have so many sensors in that car. I think you'll have a lot of like you will have more advanced, self-driving features. So you need that, lidars and sensors and everything else. So they kind of need to fit that somewhere as well. So maybe that was one of the reasons. I mean, I can't wait actually to go to a BMW event, when things calm down a little bit in the world, and actually talk to the designers and kind of find out exactly why they went that route. But it's one of those things you either hate it or love it. I mean, I personally love it. I think it's fresh, it's different. I don't want a boring car, so might as well, I had an i3, might
Right.
as well give me something more, like something bold or something
Yeah.
bolder. I mean, they say it's 80 to 90% close to production. So I'm assuming they're going to drop the side mirrors, which they're always really cool in a production model. They're going to drop the probably the headlights. They're going to be a little bit different, maybe not as narrow. I'm sure there's some
Right.
regulations there that they need to follow. I mean, if it wasn't for regulations, everybody would build really good looking cars. And if you look at the sketches actually of the i4 concept, a lot of people don't actually look at sketches, but you actually see, the vision of the design, how they really started to, think about the car. And the sketches always look phenomenal because that's the car that anybody or everybody wants to build. But when it comes down to engineering and regulation, then they have to tone it down. But if you look at the sketches, that's the vision usually that, BMW design team has. And that's kind of the best case scenario that they want to see. And I love those renderings. They're really, really, really cool.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
it's a good looking car, and I really want to see it like the production model. And I'm more
yeah.
excited about honestly the way it's going to drive. I mean, it's 530 horsepower ish, right? And like
Yes.
over 300 miles of range. Like that's pretty
Yes, I
good
mean it's got
specs.
a really good specs. I mean it's fast for 4 seconds from 0 to 62, 0 to 100 kilometers per hour. I think we'll have different battery packs. They haven't really talked about that. They only confirmed one spec. I truly
Yeah,
believe
there's
there'll
only the one
be
spec right now.
Yeah, I think they'll truly believe. I truly believe there'll be two different specs. So I think they're playing around with the naming convention also. I don't think it's going to be called the i4. I think it's going to be called something else. I saw some reports online that we picked up to like either i430 and i440. Basically, the 430 and the 440 they represent, the more expensive, the better model, basically, like they do with
Right.
the normal cars. So they might
Right.
go something like that. So I think they're going to have like at least two different battery sizes, more range. I think the best case scenario they said 600 kilometers, and I'm
That's a
assuming that
lot.
it is, but that's on WLTP, which is a little bit more generous than the EPA rating. So I think
Yeah.
the EPA rating will be a little bit lower, but I would say it's fair to say they will have over 300 miles
I
range
mean,
and
that's
different.
really good.
Yeah, it is really good. I mean, it's going to come down to infrastructure at that point and the charging capabilities
Right. And that's
versus
really the
how
thing. I
much
mean,
range. Yeah,
like the charging capabilities are the most important thing because like the functional difference between 200 miles and 300 miles of range for someone every day is pretty small. No one's really going to use that extra 100 miles every day, but it's the fact that if you can charge up in a half hour, that makes a huge difference, versus
it's
some
it's
other
not
cars
just the
taking.
charge time; it's really the finding charging stations. So
That too, yeah.
I will be gladly giving up, 50 miles of my i3 range if I could get another 10 fast charging stations in my area. I mean, I
Right.
would gladly do that. I mean, to me, it's like always a hassle trying to find a spot to charge a car. I actually went today to charge the car at the grocery store, and the spot was taken by a Chevy Bolt, so I had to wait, and then I stopped
Damn Chevy
waiting, and then
Motors.
I left. Yeah, so that's kind of the issue there. I mean, it's really the issue. Can we get the infrastructure going? I mean, Chicago doesn't seem to be up to date with that. I think California they do a great job, but hopefully it will be a global thing or a global rollout where the infrastructure it's good and you can actually charge cars and not have to worry about extra 50 miles or 30 miles of range. But yeah, the specs look good. I mean, it's their latest platform. I think they call it a fifth generation. And the other thing that they really don't want to talk about yet, but like again, I suspect it will happen. It's the all-wheel drive. So I think so far they've only kind of mentioned the rear-wheel drive, but I think
Yeah,
eventually there will be one.
the press release was vague, so I didn't
Yeah,
specify honestly because
probably on purpose. Yeah,
yeah, yeah, it was really vague. It didn't specify if it was rear wheel drive or all-wheel drive, and like originally assumed it was going to be dual motor all wheel drive because that's every modern performance EV that comes out
exactly.
is dual motor all wheel drive. So I just assumed, and then the press release was vague, so I was vague as well. But it made
Yeah.
it almost sound like it was going to be rear wheel drive.
Yeah, I don't see them falling behind on that. I mean, it would make sense. I mean, they currently build X-Drive cars, so it makes sense for them to kind of do that. And they have that
Right.
knowledge because they did it on the i8, right? I mean, it's a hybrid, granted, but it
I
does
mean,
have the capability of,
it's a lot harder to make the
dual motor
i8
stuff.
actually be all wheel drive than just two electric motors. There's
Exactly.
no
So I'm
internal combustion engine to
sure,
begin
I'm
with.
sure we'll learn more. They had or they have some events planned this year based on how this coronavirus plays out, for everyone's safety. But there were some things set up that they will offer more insight into what's coming. So I was hoping that I'll learn there more, but we don't know yet how that's going to play out. But I'm sure that we'll learn more about this project. I mean, it's one of their biggest projects right now, and along with the I next iX, whichever name it's going to have, so they will definitely share more on that. But yeah, I mean, I'm excited for it. I think a
Yeah,
lot of
I
people
am
are. I mean, I just wish it was coming next year. Next year would have been perfect. I think I would have loved that, but apparently
why is
it
that
takes a little bit more
the
time to
end of
set
the
it
lease
up.
of the i3 next year?
Yeah, exactly. And I don't even know if they're selling the i3 in the US anymore. I think they are, but it's kind of like low allocations and all of that. So, and I really don't
Right.
want to go back uh, to a second, gasoline car. I have one, and that's enough. So,
You'll just have to stick it out and drive your 1M, man. It's a real
uh,
hardship.
yeah, I don't know. It's not easy to drive in the winter. It's driving in the
Yeah,
winter. It's
yeah.
a challenge.
Especially in Chicago, yeah.
Exactly, it's a challenge. But yeah, no, that's kind of what I had for this week. I mean, there were some interesting topics. I think next time
Yeah,
we
big
can
stuff actually.
probably talk about the 2 Series Grand Coupe. It's also a car that I drove recently in two different variants, a diesel and the M235i. And I think you're testing one, right?
Yeah, I actually have an M235i Grand Coupe outside of my
Yeah,
house right
so
now.
that'll be kind of cool, right? So you can
Yeah.
tell me what you think next time, and I'll show you. I'll tell you my opinion on the car. So that'll
That
be
should be fun.
yeah, that'll be an interesting topic, and I'm sure there'll be some other things that we can chat about next time. I think the M3 and M4 it's another good topic. There
Yeah,
were a few more
for
leaks.
sure. Yeah.
I think we can talk about that as well.
Yeah, and I talked to Marcus Flash a little bit about it last time I was in LA for the M2 Futura thing.
Hmm.
Like the night prior to that, we were at dinner, and he was just like kind of candidly speaking about the M3. So, you know,
Hmm.
I'm really optimistic about that. I'd like to talk about that too.
Yeah, nice, cool.
All right, man.
All right, well,
All right. Well, I
thanks for
appreciate
having
your
me, Nico.
time.
Yeah,
Yeah,
appreciate it too.
yeah. So, thanks for stopping by and talking to me about all this fun stuff. As always, if anyone has any questions, shoot them at nico@bmwblog.com. So it's nico@bmwblog.com. And is
Thanks,
there anything
Nico.
else,
Yeah.
Sergio? You good?
No, that's all. Thanks for having me.
All
Appreciate it, and I'll speak to you soon.
right, man.
All right, thanks.
All right.
Bye.